Good morning, dear students. Today we will do History Chapter 11 New Empires and Kingdoms. First of all, there is Prashastis and what they tell us. Arvind was supposed to be acting as Samudragupta, a famous ruler of a dynasty known as the Guptas. We know about Samudragupta from a long inscription and a poem in Sanskrit composed by his court poet Harisena nearly 1700 years ago. This was inscribed on the Ashokan pillar at Allahabad. This inscription is of a special kind known as a Prashasti, a Sanskrit word meaning in praise of. While Prashastis were composed for some of the rulers you read about in chapter 10, such as Gautamiputra Shri Satakarni, they became far more important from the time of the Guptas. Samudragupta's Prashasti. Let us see what Samudragupta's Prashasti tells us. The poet praised the king in glowing terms as a warrior, as a king who won victories in battle, who was learned and the best of poets. He is also described as equal to the gods. The Prashasti was composed in very long sentences. Here is a part of one such sentence. Samudragupta the warrior, whose body was most charming, being covered with plenteous beauty of the marks of hundreds of scars caused by battle axes, arrows, spikes, spears, barbed darts, swords, iron clubs, javelins, barbed arrows, long arrows, and many other weapons. If you look at the map, you will notice an area shaded in green. You will also find a series of red dots along the east coast. And you will find areas marked in purple and blue as well. This map is based on the information provided in the Prashasti. Harisena describes 4 different kinds of rulers and tells us about Samudragupta's policies towards them. First, the rulers of Aryavarta, the area shaded in green on the map. Here there were 9 rulers who were uprooted and their kingdoms were made a part of Samudragupta's empire. Second, the rulers of Dakshinapad. Here there were 12 rulers, some of whose capitals are marked with red dots on the map. They surrendered to the Samudragupta after being defeated and he then allowed them to rule again. The inner circle of neighboring states including Assam, coastal Bengal, Nepal and a number of Gana Sanghas in the northwest marked in purple on the map. They brought tribute, followed his orders and attended his court. The rulers of outlying areas marked in blue on the map, perhaps the descendants of the Kushanas and Shakas and the ruler of Sri Lanka who submitted to him and offered daughters in marriage. Vikram Samvat, the era beginning in the 58 BCE, is traditionally associated with Gupta king Chandragupta II, who had founded it as a mark of victory over the Shakas and assumed the title of Vikramaditya. The Vikram Samvat has also been adopted alongside the Gregorian calendar as the national calendar by independent India. Genealogies. Most Prashastis also mention the ancestors of the ruler. This one mentions Samudragupta's great-grandfather, grandfather, father and mother. His mother, Kumara Devi, belonged to the Lichvi Gana, while his father, Chandragupta, was the first ruler of Gupta dynasty to adopt the grand title of Maharaj Adhiraja, a title that Samudragupta also used. His great-grandfather and grandfather are mentioned simply as Maharajas. It seems as if the family gradually rose to importance. Samudragupta in turn figures in the genealogies of later rulers of the dynasty, such as his son Chandragupta II. We know about him from inscription and coins. He led an expedition to western India, where he overcame the last of the Shakas. According to the later belief, his court was full of learned people, including Kalidasa, the poet, and Aryabhatta, the astronomer, Harshvardhan, and Harshacharita. While we can learn about the Gupta rulers from their inscriptions and coins, we can find about some kings from biographies. Harshvardhana, who ruled nearly 1400 years ago, was one such ruler. His court poet Banabhatta wrote his biography, the Harshacharita, in Sanskrit. This gives us the genealogy of Harsha and ends with his becoming king. Xuanzang, about whom you read in chapter 10, also spent a lot of time at Harsha's court and left a detailed account of what he saw. Harsha was not the eldest son of his father, but became king of Thanesar after both his father and elder brother died. His brother-in-law was the ruler of Kannauj, and he was killed by the ruler of Bengal. Harsha took over the kingdom of Kannauj and then led an army against the ruler of Bengal. Although he was successful in the east and conquered both Magadha and Bengal, he was not as successful elsewhere. He tried to cross the Narmada to march into the Deccan, but was stopped by a ruler belonging to Chalukya dynasty, Pulkeshin II. The Pallavas, Chalukyas, and Pulkeshin's Prashasti. The Pallavas and Chalukyas were the most important ruling dynasties in South India during this period. The kingdom of the Pallavas spread from the region around their capital Kanchipuram to the Kaveri Delta, while that of Chalukyas was centered around the Raichur Dwab between the rivers Krishna and Tungabhadra. The capital of Chalukya was an important trading center. It developed as a religious center with a number of temples. The Pallavas and Chalukyas frequently raided one another's land, especially attacking the capital cities, which were prosperous towns. The best known Chalukya ruler was Pulakeshin II. We know about him from a Prashasti composed by his court poet Ravikirti. This tells us about his ancestors who were traced back through 4 generations from father to son. Pulkeshin evidently got the kingdom from his uncle. According to Ravikirti, he led expeditions along both the west and the east coasts. Besides, check the advance of Harsha. There is an interesting play of words in the poem. Harsha means happiness. The poet says that after this defeat, Harsha was no longer Harsha. Pulakeshin also attacked the Pallava king who took shelter behind the walls of Kanchipuram. But the Chalukya victory was short-lived. Ultimately, both the Pallavas and the Chalukyas gave way to new rulers belonging to the Rashtrakuta and Chola dynasties. However, these kingdoms administered. As in the case of earlier kings, land revenue remained important for these rulers, and the village remained the basic unit of administration. There were some new developments as well. Kings adopted a number of steps to win the support of men who were powerful either economically or socially, or because of their political and military strength. For instance, some important administrative posts were now hereditary. This means that sons succeeded fathers to these posts. For example, the poet Harisena was Mahadanda Naika, or chief judicial officer like his father. Sometimes one person held many offices. For instance, besides being a Mahadanda Naika, Hari was a Kumar Amitya, meaning an important minister, and a Sandhi Vigrahika, meaning a minister of war and peace. Besides important men, probably they had say in local administration. These included the Nagar Shreshti, or chief banker or merchant of the city, the Sartvaha, or leader of merchant caravans, the Pratham Kulika, or the chief craftsman, and the head of the Kaisthas or scribes. These policies were reasonably effective, but sooner or later some of these powerful men grew strong enough to set up independent kingdoms. A new kind of army. Like earlier rulers, some of these kings maintained a well organized army with elephants, chariots, cavalry, and foot soldiers. Besides, there were military leaders who provided the king with troops whenever he needed them. They were not paid regular salaries, instead, some of them received grants of land. They collected revenue from the land and used this to maintain soldiers and horses and provide equipment for warfare. These men were known as samantas. Whenever the ruler was weak, samantas tried to become independent. Assemblies in the southern kingdoms. The inscriptions of Pallavas mention a number of local assemblies. These included the Sabha, which was an assembly of Brahmin landowners. This assembly functioned through subcommittees which looked after irrigation, agricultural operations, making roads, local temples, etc. The Ur was a village assembly found in areas where the landowners were not Brahmins, and the Nagaram was an organization of merchants. It is likely that these assemblies were controlled by rich and powerful landowners and merchants. Many of these local assemblies continue to function for centuries. Ordinary people in the kingdoms. We can catch an occasional glimpse of the lives of ordinary people from plays and other accounts. Let us look at some of these. Kalidasa is known for his plays depicting life in the king's court. An interesting feature about these plays is that the king and most Brahmins are shown as speaking Sanskrit, while women and men other than the king and Brahmins use Prakrit. His most famous play, Abhijan Shakuntalam, is the story of love between a king named Dushyanta and a young woman named Shakuntala. We find an interesting description of the plight of a poor fisherman in this play. The Chinese pilgrim Faxian noticed the plight of those who were treated as untouchables by the high and mighty. They were expected to live on the outskirts of the city. He writes, if such a man enters a town or a marketplace, he strikes a piece of wood in order to keep himself separate. People hearing this sound know what it means and avoid touching him or brushing against him. The Bana Bhatta provides us with a vivid picture of king's army on the move. Thank you.